Hello, everybody. Welcome to Module 6, Ethical Technology Leadership. It's hard to believe the semester has pretty much blown by already. Thank you all for your wonderful engagement and insights throughout the semester. And what a great way to close out as we talk about what it means to be an ethical leader in this rapidly evolving, technology world that we're in, especially in schools. And so by ethical leadership, I think a lot of times what we're landing on there is this gray area. It's this area that doesn't have a right or a wrong, or has two rights, two wrongs, but it comes down to leaders to kind of make a decision or to find a compromise between these competing forces. That's really where ethical leadership comes in. And in technology, there are just an infinite amount of questions that we're being asked every day. Another example, another dimension that we'll talk about here is the ethical stewardship of resources. A tremendous amount of resources are being dedicated to technology, and we want to make sure that as leaders, we're making the right decisions. So we've been working on that throughout the semester, and now it's time to really culminate in some examples and exercises. And so let's get into some of this right now as we talk about ethical leadership from a theoretical standpoint. As always, first, how do we harness technology for good? That is really the first question we should be asking. Technology usually is a positive, but it can be used for not so positive effects. We see that. So how can we harness technology for good? That would be the ethical approach. But then that gets to the tougher question of what is good, what is right. There are two different forces. And so if we think about this theoretically, well, let's just take a look at one example. So I asked one of the OpenAI models, DAL-E, which is an image generator. So let's use this tool for good. I need a visual of what the school of the future would look like. And I'd like to have an artistic take on that. I could go draw it, or I could maybe go and find a piece of clip art. But no, I want an original piece of art that tells me something about the school of the future using digital art. So I asked DALL-E, draw me a picture of school of the future, comma, digital art. That's the prompt approach for this. And here's what it came up with. So take a look. Schools of the future. The first image came up like this, and I think it's pretty beautiful. I could not have drawn that. I like it. It's kind of Jetsons, or, it feels kind of Jetsony. I like it. The other image it came up with was a little spookier. Here it is. Again, same prompt. School of the future. This one's kind of dystopian, and I don't know what's going on there. It's got some kind of like melting apparatus, and it's got a little War of the Worlds vibe to it. So I think this kind of brings up a good example of, as we get into the future, as we talk about this, there are always some trade-offs, and we have to ask, what are those trade-offs? So I did not draw it. I did not enhance my skills. I didn't pay a visual artist, a graphic artist, to do those. But I couldn't afford that. I was just going to do this real quick and show that. So there's always these trade-offs that are, existential in some cases and very practical in others. And those are the things that we're dealing with. So I asked you guys to take a look at that from a very practical standpoint using, tools that are now emerging, and to think deeply about, where are we headed in terms of technology leadership in schools in the age of AI. So in AI, we have a lot of great resources discussing that, but also we have some great videos that you can take a look at. You're going to be dealing with this. You're already dealing with this if you're in a school around students. So we have deeper questions, not just questions about enforcement, but deeper questions like, if the bots or if the digital assistants do the work, what are the new skills that we should be teaching? That is a deeper question that's going to be at the forefront of all of our work. As teachers, think about this. This is just one video, but there's many others. Doing an hour's worth of work in 6 minutes, in 10 seconds. We're talking about paradigm shifting work here. And that's part of our activity is I have you think, okay, do some tasks that are related to your work and see what you think. we then are left with ethical questions and ethical dilemmas. If you want to dive in even deeper, have a couple of different videos there that talk about this from a paradigm standpoint. But I think what technologists, educators, theoreticians, and everybody is really grappling with right now is the scope of the impact this is going to have. It's quite big. So dive in there and find out a little bit about the work, the tools themselves. But then I really want you to think about this on a deep level. What are we going to do? A couple of other pieces that are in our module here revolve around teacher and student privacy, and this very much is interrelated with that. A couple of key cases that I want you to think about. Let's talk about teacher privacy first. So what happens when a teacher is doing something, or maybe another employee, but certainly a teacher is doing something, or maybe disses students online or does something inappropriate that affects their work in the classroom. So we can immediately assume, hey, a teacher's private life is their private life. But actually, if you take a look at the cases, the case study or the case law has shown that if it impacts the work at hand, meaning if they have completely lost the respect of their role as a teacher and they can no longer do their job, they can be dismissed. So take a look at some of those law cases. And regarding students, as an administrator, I shared in there that, I was part of, like many of you, when cell phones first became ubiquitous, we had to deal with that. When social media became ubiquitous, we were dealing with incidents on campus and off campus that completely were basically manifested through social media. What are the laws and what are the regulations on that? Believe it or not, it's actually more flexible than you would think. As an administrator, we would have to take action sometimes because of what happened off campus, but if it manifested on campus, we would have a case that was, again, gray, but it's all part of sort of like that ethical leadership, and you're working with parents and you're saying, hey, listen, do you want us to just let this go, or what do you expect us to do if this happened all online, but it came here? Those are all the kind of cases and the questions that you should be asking yourself. You're already dealing with this, I'm sure, if you're in a school. So take a look at some of the resources that we have around that. And also, we ask you to kind of take a look at the social media policies that are in place in your school or organization. Sometimes those are robust. Other times they're outdated. Sometimes they're very up to date. Sometimes they don't exist at all. So we ask you to kind of take a look at that. And then lastly, and we've been talking about this as we talked about different resources and tools, what are the data sharing agreements, especially with third-party providers, as we have more and more interconnectivity between the tools. Students logging in, what data is being shared, what's anonymous, what is a third-party app, what is not. So we have some different data sharing agreements that we want you to take a look at. It could be as simple as an MOU, or a memorandum of understanding, to establish data sharing agreements that some of the technology companies are dealing with. Data custody of key student data and certain data that cannot be shared, that's also in there. So make sure you read up on that and that you're up to date with the different kinds of data sharing. So that's kind of some resources regarding teacher and student privacy. But then lastly, we want to be good ethical stewards of resources. And increasingly, this could be one of the largest line items in a budget. Usually the largest line item is teacher salaries. Number two is transportation often. Technology is going to probably be one of those that is going to take a significant piece of the pie. So are we doing the right thing with these resources? I recall, as almost a first-year teacher in a very large district, we had a partnership with Dell, and we bought tons of computers. Basically, the district had all the computers on a 3-year contract, and we bought them all, and all the boxes came in. They had not upgraded the electrical system, and they had not upgraded the IT in general to support those computers. They sat in the hallway for a whole year, and even after they came online, it was a complete mess. Now, that is not just a breakdown in terms of operations. We would say that's almost an ethical breakdown or a complete ethical breakdown. If you have millions of dollars that are wasted because we did not fully vet the strategy on how to deploy that technology, or we did not look at options that might have been cheaper or better, that falls into the ethical range, and we have to be good ethical stewards of these resources, increasingly millions of dollars. So, how do we do that? A couple of different activities that we close out with. One of them is the request for proposal, or RFP. This is your final assignment, and it's very detailed. You're going to learn a lot here, but it's really just applying everything that we've been doing in the course. So we spent a good bit of time looking at different rubrics and really analyzing technology tools. What you want to do now is apply that to procure one solution from a provider. And there's a very set process for that. We give you a lot of resources for it, but you submit you publish what's called an RFP, or a request for proposal. And you don't need to publish it in a specific site for the purpose of this assignment, but usually there's clearinghouses that you can publish these, or you send it out, and then providers will submit their bids. So what do those look like? We give you some different examples of what these RFPs look like, and then step by step on how to create those. The second piece, and this is the part of the final work too, is building a PD wireframe for your school. If you could pick anything that we've covered in this class that you think needs to be developed in terms of professional development, what would that be? And to think about it from our frameworks, where are you in the entry phase that you think needs to nudge toward transformation, 1 or 2 levels? What can you do to move it from entry level to transformation? So those are what we would call a wireframe. And by wireframe, what we really mean here is you don't have to do the whole PD. It doesn't need to have all the details, because this is very iterative stuff. I want you to use this work in your practice. So just produce a wireframe. You can see the examples of how we do that. That is going to set you up for your PD that you're going to do when the time comes. I don't want you to do a simulation just for me. I want you to set yourself up to do a real PD when that time comes. Is it for an app? Is it for an LMS? Is it for an approach? Maybe mindsets? I want you to think about everything we've covered and what you can bring to your organization as a technology leader. So guys, fantastic work. I'm looking forward to engaging in some of our AI conversations and other work as well. I'm available if you have any questions, whether it's about the RFP or any of the other work. I'm looking forward to engaging with all of you. Please reach out if I can help. Have a great week.